let's start with the Rafah invasion. All right.
Hamas leaders are considering a new Middle East ceasefire proposal from Israel. The deal includes a 40-day truce in return for the release of some hostages. It would also allow for displaced families to return to northern Gaza. It's reported to involve new wording on restoring calm to Gaza that's designed to satisfy.
All right. Let's get started. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what the hell's going on. The war cabinet desperately wants to attack Rafah. You got the centrist liberal coalition constituency with Benny Gantz, who is the liberal general who wants to attack Rafah. You got America saying, do not touch Rafah. That's really up. So Benjamin Netanyahu has to basically communicate America's wishes to the war cabinet. And then you also have the Smotrich and the Bezalel Smotrich and the further right coalition of Itamar Ben-Gvir, who also want to hit Rafah and just do as much genocide as possible. So Benjamin Netanyahu is stuck between a rock and a hard place. So does he care about Palestinian lives? Of course not. Of course, he loves killing Palestinians. Don't misunderstand me at all. But he also understands with his, 20, 30 years of experience with dealing with the United States of America as the state representative of Israel, that, invading Rafah is probably going to really piss off the Western world and just maybe even sever some ties. You got the ICC arrest warrants that are coming down potentially. There's a lot of Western pressure on Israel. Now, obviously, many of you will say, Western pressure on Israel from actual organs of the government? The fuck do you mean? These guys are doing a genocide. I mean, there's a lot of Western pressure on Israel in a way that Israel has never seen before. Because if you're Israel, you're used to being babied all day, every day. They're like, how much money you want? Oh, I'm so mad at you, but here's like $1 gazillion of weapons that you can use on directly targeting children inside of Gaza, right? So for that to be what they're used to, this level of scrutiny over their behavior, over their actions, even in the media, and certainly from actual bodies of government, not just like the feckless institution of the United Nations, but like actual American politicians, like being like, yo, you can't invade Rafah, has caused Benjamin Netanyahu to be a little bit more careful about this process. But he still obviously has internal issues. One of the major roles he's playing here is obviously defending his legacy and maintaining his power, because if he's out of office, if he's out of the war cabinet, he's gone. If there's a new election, he's gone, right? Or at least he most likely will not be able to build another coalition. So, having said that, he doesn't want to let the war cabinet go. So this is the reason why the even further right elements like Ben-Gvir, even further right elements like Smotrich are capable of basically saying, if you don't do what we want you to do, we'll disband the war cabinet. So he's weak in that sense, because if the war cabinet goes away, new government comes in, he's cooked, he goes to jail. That's it. That's the situation at hand. So these are the different forces converging here on why, if you're wondering why Israel has not, gone into Rafah yet, it's because of self-preservation from every angle all the way down. And that's why there's limitations. Now, having said that, it's dog shit. The way that they're trying to, the fact that they're trying to invade Rafah or even talking about this as anything beyond another pressure point for Hamas from their perspective is insane to me. One might assume that they're simply talking about invading Rafah, even though they don't actually want to invade Rafah, because they want to apply pressure to Hamas so that Hamas will listen to their demands and lower their otherwise very reasonable demands that they've made time and time again. Maybe it's just brinksmanship, maybe it's just politics, or maybe if you are Ben-Gvir or Smotrich, it's literally wanting to kill as many Palestinian children as possible, because that's the only way you can come. So there are a lot of different factors. There are a lot of different motivations at play here. But it seems the Israeli prime minister says the Rafah attack will go ahead with or without a truce deal.
Hamas's demand for a permanent ceasefire. A source close to the talks told the BBC the new proposal from Israel is significantly different from previous offers. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken called this deal extraordinarily generous. That view echoed by the UK's Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron.
All the pressure in the world and all the eyes of the world should be on them today, saying take that deal. It will bring about this stop in the fighting that we all want to see so badly.
According to Israel, 133 hostages are still being held by Hamas in Gaza. At least 30 of them are presumed dead. Mediators from Egypt, Qatar and the US have been attempting for weeks to broker a deal to bring another pause in the fighting. Now, one source has told...
I just want y'all to remember, okay? I want y'all to remember, from the jump, there has never been a moment where anyone in the Western media or any Western politician has openly stated Hamas has actually made some reasonable demands here. It's always Hamas is picking up the bag. Israel is giving them such a great deal, the greatest deal of all time. And these guys just don't want to take it. There has never been a single fucking piece of coverage in Western media, with the exception of like every now and then they'll have like a hostage negotiator, like a professional hostage negotiator guy or whatever, come up and be like, no, it's actually Israel that's up the bag. But that's like on CNN International, or maybe every now and then they'll have like Christian Amanpour interview someone, and then that interview is it. Like that never goes anywhere. That never gets repeated over and over again. Everyone takes it for granted. Israel always has the most generous deals, and Hamas is always saying no to the generous deals. Why? Jew hatred, right? And, you know, it's just rampant anti-Semitism. Rampant anti-Semitism. They just want to kill all the Jewish people. That's why they just won't do it. And it's like, from the jump, they have made very clear-cut demands. You might not agree with the actions of that happened, the actions that Palestinian resistance took on October 7. Certainly, there were a shit ton of tragedies, acts of terror. Having said that, however, their demands have been very reasonable and very just. Okay? As a political body, as a unit, as a group that is working on militarily resisting the apartheid regime, it's been fairly just. Oh, here. Hamas official says group would lay down its arms if an independent Palestinian state is established on 1967 borders. Think about that. But hey, guess what, dude? That's unreasonable. You know what I mean? That's so unreasonable. We can't have that. We just can't simply have that. Can't do that.
For the BBC, they are cautiously optimistic about the prospects of this deal being accepted. In a development, though, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that Israel will...
It's so funny because someone said, isn't that the guy who said there should be multiple October 7s? And that's so hilarious to think about within the context of like who they are also agreeing to do this deal with. Because there is one guy that said, because of what Israel has done to us for 75 years, if we did 1 million October 7s, we would be righteous in that cause, which I don't agree with, right? Having said that, that's the one guy that everybody points to say they're genocidal. Okay, on the other side, they're literally bargaining and trying to do a ceasefire negotiation with dudes who openly are doing genocide and literally say way worse shit on a daily basis with the entire backing of the Western world. So yeah, the one Lebanese spokesperson, the one spokesperson for Lebanon saying some fucked up shit immediately after October 7 gets repeated over and over again. Every Israeli official at this point has been like, we have to wipe out the Palestinian scourge. Like, we have to clean up the lands of the parasitic Palestinian vermin, you know, their dogs, their rats, whatever. All the classic Nazi tropes. I sleep. One time a Palestinian dude said, Israel's existence and its cruelty justifies 1 million October 7s. I wake up and I think, well, I see who the genocidal side is. Ridiculous. Different guy, law. That's Ghazu Hamad. This is Khalil Al Hayya. Oh, Smotrich said yesterday he wants to erase the memory of Amalek again. No half-ass job. Rafah, Dir el-Bala, Nusayrat, total annihilation. Erase the memory of Amalek from under the sky. There is no place for this pure evil. Has no cure. Cannot exist. That's so. Ay, ay, ay. Oh, my Lord. It's just, bro, I swear to God, every day, since October 7th, everybody used to come in here and be like, excuse me, Hassan, how dare you say Israel are the bad guys here? Okay. And then I would just show them a video like this from like an Israeli official. This guy's literally the finance minister, for those of you who don't know, Bezalel Smotrich, who once famously said, I do not want my wife to give birth next to an Arab, okay, like a Palestinian citizen of Israel, like a non-Jewish person that has Israeli citizenship, okay? Because why would she give birth next to a terrorist who is inevitably going to try and kill her? Like, all Arabs are breeding, according to Bezalel Smotrich, future terrorists. Finance minister and de facto governor of the entire West Bank. This guy controls the West Bank. This guy, yeah, he's a settler. To help you understand, like, I mean, that guy is literally a settler. So is Itamar Ben-Gvir. It's just like having a Klansman wearing the. I mean, Itamar Ben-Gvir's party is called the Jewish Power Party. Okay, what are we doing? They literally are it is the white power equivalent. It's just so funny that we act like this is a functioning democracy and not this like psychopathic, bloodthirsty fascist state. It is such a hilarious thing to try and explain to Americans that like everything you know about Israel is just completely fabricated. Everything you have learned about Israel is just outright lies, okay? Just completely fabricated. The most moral army, bullshit. The fact that they have a functioning government and it's the only democracy in the Middle East, bullshit. Bullshit. It's an apartheid. Safest place on the planet for Jews, literally bullshit. Yeah, the Kahanists are considered too fascistic for even the nutcases in Likud. Ben-Gvir and the far-right Zionists are that insane. Yeah. I mean, they're actually terrorists. They're actually, they are, like, this is not my classification. This is the American State Department and the Israeli government's classification. Kahanists is a cult, is a psychopathic far-right Jewish extremist, a Jewish supremacist extremist cult that did acts of terror in the West Bank against Palestinians and also has like done acts of terror in the United States of America as well. These guys are so far right. They are so psychopathic that the Israeli government thinks they're too much or thought that they were too much. Obviously now they don't care about it as much, but anyway, so it's always wild whenever we have these conversations that people are just like, wait, what the f do you mean? Like, are you telling me that an actual rabid, psychopathic, Jewish supremacist far-right cult has like mass support in the Knesset now and like a, decent amount of support?
Will carry out an offensive against Hamas in Rafah, regardless of whether or not a ceasefire deal has been reached. Well, as those negotiations take place, fighting continues in Gaza. We've seen smoke rising over the centre of the Strip earlier today as airstrikes hit the territory. The Health Ministry said there had been a further 47 deaths in the last day. It says more than 34,500 people have died since the conflict began almost 7 months ago following the Hamas attack on Israel on October the 7th. Our Middle East correspondent Yolanda is in Jerusalem.
This Hamas delegation that was in Cairo meeting Egyptian and Qatari.
What? I heard a high schooler say that she can't wait to leave the U.S. to go live in Israel and that she's sorry if it's controversial, but them that and their friends say that they should build playgrounds in Gaza and remove everything that's there. Don't know how someone can say that with a straight face. There's nothing funnier to me than motherfuckers who just like want to go and live in Israel. Bro, you live in America. Like having an allegiance to a fascist state, like this is so wild to me. Like you already live in a fascist state and it's a better one. You know what I mean? Why the would you go? Why would you go live in the welfare state of the fascist state that's doing even more overt fascism? It doesn't make sense. Why is that shocking? White women, including T Swift, say they want to live in the 1830s. Okay, chill.
Mediators left late yesterday, and we understand that they're now in consultations with the top Hamas leadership. Arab media suggesting that they will get back to the mediators by the end of tomorrow with their response to the latest deal that's on the table. Now, feeding into all of that, we do have these new comments by the Israeli Prime Minister. On the one hand, he's reiterating what he's said now for many weeks, that Israel is still determined to go into Rafah in the very south of the Gaza Strip to eliminate Hamas battalions there, that they'll do that with or without a new hostage deal. But obviously the timing here is of the essence. This is a very sensitive moment, and there are fears that, you know, anything could scupper a new deal at this point.
You know, we're just seeing pictures there of Benjamin Netanyahu. The war cabinet continues to meet, of course. How much domestic disagreement is there, and disagreement within the cabinet about what should happen with Rafah?
Yeah, the disagreement ranges from like, do we kill every single Palestinian child, or should we kill 98% of the Palestinian children? That's the major disagreement in the war cabinet. Okay, all jokes aside, the major disagreement is like Netanyahu is trying to keep it together while also meeting the demands of the West. He has at least somewhat of a better understanding of how the Western world is perceiving their actions than like the sociopathic fascists, both to his left, which is such a funny thing to say, like Benny Gantz, who is also incredibly horny about invading Rafah, militarily dealing with Hamas. And then to his right, you have the absolute, like the even more psychopathic monsters. It's such a funny way to, like, it's such a funny thing to, like, cover. Yeah. The major disagreement in the most reductive terms can be reduced to it's between we got to do it right now and Rafah can wait. We got to get the hostages first. The floating port the U.S. is building off the Gaza coast, exactly the opposite of the largest gas field in the region, while the U.S. admin claims it's pushing an Israeli end to the Israeli war. Why is it hurrying towards completing the port, which Gazans do not want or need in this location? Yeah, I don't really understand like why they're still going off with this port shit, especially when considering that you could just open up the checkpoints. It just doesn't make sense. You know, you have access points that are literally easier and better that Israel is not allowing anybody to utilize currently. You can deliver aid from Israel, you can deliver aid from Egypt, and yet for some weird reason Israel won't allow that to happen. I wonder what that's about.
I mean, within the overall cabinet of the coalition government led by Mr. Netanyahu, you do have some really deep divisions now. And those on the far right have really been saying that Israel needs to prioritize going into Rafah in order to win this war. One far right minister, Bezalel Smotrich, said the government had no right to exist if it didn't prioritize that. And then in response, we had Benny Gantz, who's a member of the war cabinet, is more of a centrist, coming back saying that the government had no right to exist if it blocked a hostage deal. So you can see there is that dynamic going on. The latest comments by Mr. Netanyahu do appear to put him more on the side of his far-right ministers, but he's also going to be under a lot more international pressure in the coming hours, as we're expecting the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken to come to meet Israeli leaders. The US and others have really been pushing for a new deal at this point that would bring home Israeli hostages and in exchange have a sort of 6-day, 6-week ceasefire.
Damn, dude. Guys, I'm beginning to feel like I hate to make such strong claims on this broadcast, but I'm beginning to feel like the Israeli war cabinet and those in positions of power in Israel don't actually care about the hostages at all. Just a suspicion. I have this sneaking suspicion. That if they cared about the hostages, the well-being of the hostages, they probably wouldn't have flattened Gaza where the hostages were and killed a shit ton of them. And the remaining hostages, they're also actively trying to assassinate. I don't know. It's just, guys, it's just a sneaking suspicion. I don't know. I can't say conclusively. I can, however, tell you that at the top of the hour, there is going to be a 3-minute ad break, and that is conclusive. But it's wild because, like, they put the posters up, but they put the posters up everywhere in New York and in Los Angeles. There are all of the Israeli flags on Beverly Hills, like right on Santa Monica Boulevard. Right as soon as you enter Beverly Hills, you have all those flags honoring the hostages. It's just shocking to me because, like, it kind of feels like the Israeli government doesn't care. You know? What the happened? Yeah. On October 8, I told you that the Israeli government demonstrated that they care more about killing Palestinians than they do about the safety and security of Jews living inside of Israel proper, which included the hostages and which included literally the Jewish people living inside of Israel in the kibbutzim at the time. I brought up the Hannibal Doctrine as a reason for why I don't believe that Israel, the reason why I don't believe Israel cares about the hostages is because of their own official policy. Their own military policy is to kill Israeli hostages rather than let Hamas or a Palestinian group actually take those hostages and use them as a political bargaining chip. That's the reason. They would rather continue killing them and continue doing their ethnic cleansing campaign. I was right. Many people at the time, probably not being super experienced with the way that Israel operates, not being very knowledgeable on Israel's fascist tendencies, assumed that Israel was being genuine when they said, oh, no, we care about the hostages. The Israeli government, that is. They were wrong. I do not fault you for being wrong back then, partially because this is very new. This is a very new environment for a lot of young people. They've never really encountered they've never had to reckon with Israel's actions in this regard because for the most part this shit was nipped in the bud with one-sided coverage and no care or consideration for the humanity of the Palestinians whatsoever. All I'm saying is nowadays I think a lot more people do understand the reality. That is hard to believe. They know where the remaining hostages are. Therefore, they are destroying everything around them in order to extract them easier. This is an official policy. No, what you're doing is coping. If Israel's official policy was to actually care for the hostages, they would have not killed hundreds of them. And ironic that you're saying this when you also don't give a shit about the hostages, because the hostages that were released openly communicated that they were more afraid of Israel than they were. Oh, that was a joke, Hassan. Oh, I'm sorry. Bro, you can't be coming in here and literally saying exactly what a Hasbara operative would say. Just throw a cap or something. Coming in here all gray with a new account saying that? Yeah. That's because Hasbara operators are jokes?
In the Gaza Strip. And we've had various Western leaders coming out saying that this is something that is positive. Arab ministers supporting that as well.
Yolan, we've already heard from Mr. Blinken, who said that the US has not yet seen a plan that gives us confidence that civilians can be effectively protected in Rafah. How would you judge the US influence on Benjamin Netanyahu at the moment and their leverage?
Well, the US position is very much that really because of the number of people in Rafah down along the Egyptian border that have been displaced by the fighting, something like 1.4 million people crammed into a very small area. That means that no ground offensive can really take place effectively there. It's going to be impossible to move that many people in a way that Israel can go in with the force that it wants to go after what it says are 4 Hamas battalions that are still based in that city. It's the one part of the Gaza Strip where there has not not been a full ground offensive up to now. But it's really not clear just how much leverage the US has over Israel. Of course, we know that on the international stage, it consistently shields Israel, that it is a major donor. It's just recently approved billions more dollars in military aid for Israel. But, you know, Israel has consistently made clear that when it comes to issues of its own security, it will very much take advice from the Americans. We know that there have meetings being taken place to try to discuss alternatives to a full ground invasion of Rafah with Israeli and US officials. But in the end, Israel says it makes its own decisions.
Yolande Nell there.
There were also mass demonstrations in Israel last night. Thousands of protesters blocked a highway in Tel Aviv, demanding a deal to bring the remaining Israeli hostages.
Damn, bro. I can't believe they're blocking. Bro. What? Bro, why won't these guys care about. They're being real annoying, man. Someone should go out and take care of these guys. You know what I mean? That's like, bro, I'll have you know, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, MBs, this is not allowed. And it's also kind of annoying. All right? You better watch it now. Better watch this anti-Semitism that you're engaging in, demanding that the Israeli government do their very best to, you know, make sure that your friends and your immediate family members are not assassinated by the Israeli rockets. Can't be out here doing that. Everyone, the IDF has murdered tens of thousands of Palestinians in the last 7 months. Joe Biden, y'all taking over a building ain't it. Yeah, kind of messed up, guys. I've seen some schools have given into demands about disclosing their finances. Any school divestia. I'm worried that schools will dangle amnesty in front of students in the face in return, conceding on divestment.
Hostages home from Gaza. As Deborah Patter reports, there may be signs of progress in those negotiations.
Feeling the heat and running out of options. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's choice is stark. Press ahead with a Rafah invasion or free the hostages. There are daily protests demanding Netanyahu make a deal to bring those in captivity home.
Tough choices, man. Because tough choices, guys. Sorry. We really want to slaughter Palestinian babies. It's just like, have you considered, I know that your loved ones are trapped inside of Gaza, but having said that, have you thought about how excited I get at the prospect of ruthlessly, mercilessly assassinating Palestinian babies? Because it seems like you're doing a Bodies in Spaces and you're not centering this conversation around my personal feelings and how excited I am at killing as many Palestinian children as possible. And the thing is, like, if you were to just like think about it a little bit clearly, you would probably understand that you want to mercilessly assassinate the Palestinian babies too. You're kind of a little passionate right now. I get it. Like, oh, your loved one is trapped inside of Gaza under the rubble because we blew it up. Like, sure. But think about it this way. Think about how good it would feel. Genociding an entire ethnic indigenous population feels so good without a bitch telling you in your ear that their best friends are trapped down there. Okay, just like that's all I'm saying. It's like Little Caesar's Pizza genociding an entire indigenous population.
Whatever the price.
Stop the talking and start the actions. We are losing people that are alive now. And there is no time to waste.
But hardliners in Netanyahu's ruling coalition say his job is on the line if he delays the Rafah offensive in favor of a ceasefire. Also under pressure, Hamas.
Hamas has before it a proposal that...
At a meeting with the Hostage Families Association told today, Netanyahu said the ICC arrest warrant should be, or shoot you not, an anti-Semitic hate crime. But HasanAbi, you say that, but we all know you have to live in Israel first before commenting or criticizing. Exactly. I need to walk a mile. I need to walk a mile in the most fascist shoes I can wear to really understand how cool it makes you feel when your government is just like ruthlessly bombing children, like nonstop.
Is extraordinarily generous on the part of Israel.
The US does not support a Rafah offensive, and the Secretary of State made it clear The suffering in Gaza must end. For Palestinians there, an end feels very far away. My uncle is still trapped in the rubble, cries Abdul Rahman Barika. His wheelchair-bound mother was also injured in the Israeli strike. As the house collapsed, Barika faced a decision no one should ever have to make. It was a choice between saving my children or saving my mother, he said. His children survived, but like everyone here, he is sick of war, longing for it to end.
Also weighing heavily on Netanyahu's mind, local media reports suggesting the International Criminal Court may be preparing warrants of arrest for both Israeli and Hamas leaders stemming from the October 7 attack and the war in Gaza. Tony?
Yeah, and the U.S. saying there's no...
Israel's too busy denying Srebrenica ever happened. Wait, what? What the BIH foreign minister slams Israeli ambassador for saying events at Srebrenica are not genocide. Bosnia and Herzegovina's foreign ministry chief Elmedin Konakovic has called the Israeli ambassador to Serbia, Jahel Wilan, a disgrace to both humanity and diplomacy, following the diplomat's statement that Israel does not recognize the events in Srebrenica as a genocide because it belittles the term, pronounced Srebrenica. Srebrenica. I get why. This is a trap. Chomsky also said this shit. Don't fall for it. Yeah, I think the reason why they say that is because like that being considered a genocide, okay, especially because it has the intent, the genocidal intent locked down, and all the way from administrative officials all the way down to the soldiers that act out those desires, directly puts Israel in the crosshairs. Srebrenica in Turkish, if that helps. It does help. That's all it is. That's all this is. I think Israel literally doesn't even recognize the Armenian genocide either for that same reason. Let me see. Yeah. Israel doesn't recognize. Yeah, Israel does not recognize the Armenian genocide for two reasons. One, because there are like Armenian Christians in Israel, in Jerusalem, and they hate them, obviously. And the other reason is because, like, if they were to recognize the Armenian genocide, then people are going to turn around and be like, okay, you're doing that. You're literally doing that. And you're continuing to do that to the Palestinians and even sometimes the Armenians, too. Israel's refusal to recognize the Armenian genocide is indefensible. Anyway, says that they recognized it in 2016. Is this wrong? I mean, this is from 2019. An article in 2019 says that they don't. I think they recognized it recently, like last month. Maybe they recognize it in 2021. After Biden acknowledges Armenian genocide, Israel stops short of doing the same. Wait, what? Never mind. I mean, they also did quite literally help the Azeri government, the Azerbaijan government, do ethnic displacement with Israeli weapons. So I don't think against Armenians. So I don't think they give a shit about Armenians at all. Anyway. Unlike the Armenian genocide, the Bosnian genocide has been adjudicated in international courts. It was extra bad. I mean, both are pretty bad. I think, guys, here's a take I have. Genocide is bad. I'm an anti-genocide guy, okay? That's all I'm saying, you know? Across the board, brave take, guys. Genocide, not good. Very wrong. Probably one of the worst things you can do. Other than I don't know, like having a Korean developer put a lace bra on 1 out of 74 articles of clothing that are readily available in the Stellar Blade franchise. I feel like who's to say which is worse? Well, you know, obviously the Stellar Blade thing, because that's kind of like a million 9/11s happening to the gamers, the gooner gamers. You know what I mean? It's just like, as a gooner / gamer myself, I feel like on the one hand, student protesters are getting slaughtered. Okay. They're getting absolutely dunked on by the militarized state that is destroying college students protesting for Palestinian emancipation. Publisher potentially blocked pixel cleavage out of one outfit. Yeah, this is, I mean, who's to say which is worse? Senator John Fetterman says UN unwilling to condemn Hamas, who killed, raped, mutilated, and tortured more than 1,000 Israeli babies, children, women, and elderly. Wait, what? Hamas killed, raped, mutilated, and tortured more than 1,000 Israeli babies, children, women, and the elderly. What is he saying? Bro, I'm sorry. You guys know my position on this. I am 100% ableist when it comes to public officials. And I think now I will reassert that I will basically show you my commitment to that cause once again. I think if you are this mentally handicapped, you should not be an elected representative. You should not be allowed to be an elected representative if you have this level of mental cognitive issues. Okay? Excuse me. I'm sorry. I don't think blind people should drive cars. And I don't think that John Fetterman, with this level of mental disability, should be allowed to hold public office. It's just like, maybe I'm wrong for saying it, but I think that I wouldn't even consider this to be ableism, I think, but like it's a valid thing to not want to allow. Just like if you have dementia, you shouldn't be the president, okay? Do you see how they aren't saying that the Israeli hostages are being used as human shields? It's almost as if they say they're going to confess that they killed their own hostages, which is unlike killing Palestinians because their lives are actually important. There's reports that the IDF is setting up checkpoints that will block all military-aged men from traveling northward. There were also reports that Egyptian forces preparing along the Philadelphia line to create a neutral zone for refugees, but the U.S. veto for the invasion is still on, so they couldn't go ahead immediately regardless. Either way, strangely, Bibi's career may rest on Hamas's answer in the coming days. While you're at it, get his ass too. Yeah, I mean, I covered this already. Yeah, Mr. Free Speech. Wait, what? The Florida Democratic Party has chosen Senator John Fetterman as the keynote speaker for its annual fundraising event. The special guest is Rick Wilson. Weren't you advocating for this demon before? Not trying to bait, but was this ogre a very open Zionist before? Yes. People would come up to me and talk about his Israel, pro-Israel takes, and I always cast it aside. I brushed it aside as like simple political machine calculations. I thought that it was just like a calculated effort to like get the DMFI off of his ass, Democratic majority for Israel, a calculated effort to get AIPAC goons off of his ass. I did not think that he was actually this much of a diehard piece of shit. The thing is, Felix stays winning as always. No, but even Felix, and I've talked to him about this, even he didn't realize it was like this. Nobody thought it was like this. So shut the fuck up. Anyone who tells you that they knew he was going to be like this is lying to you. Okay? He's literally to the right of the Democratic Party's majority opinion, guys. What the fuck are you talking about? He's to the right of Republicans now on this issue. We all thought this was classic, like if you're progressive, the Israeli lobby comes after you pretty aggressively. Bro, the DMFI set up shop with the same exact people in the UK that operated against Corbyn. They set up shop and their first target was Bernie Sanders. Like, if you are someone who covers this stuff regularly, if you're paying attention to this stuff, you immediately thought that this was simply because he wanted to like make sure that the DMFI doesn't spend a shit ton of money trying to thwart him. I 100% think that his Senate seat hinges on being pro-Israel. I don't believe people just snap like this. I think it's just like typical Harvard piece of shit. That's what I think. And if you think that his seat hinges on that, how the did Summer Lee operate so well? Summer Lee is literally in Pittsburgh. Summer Lee is one of the most critical elected representatives on Israel. And Summer Lee won by massive. Summer Lee outperformed the polls. Summer Lee outperformed the polls. Summer Lee outperformed Ilhan Omar. So how the did that happen? Yeah, I mean, here, Bernie Sanders has an anti-Semitism problem. This is exactly what they did. This is exactly what they did. They immediately went after Bernie and said that Bernie was anti-Semitic. But Americans don't have that British-style brain rot, okay? Americans are too stupid to understand that a Jewish person can also be anti-Semitic. Not that Bernie was. I don't think Bernie is anti-Semitic. But, like, we're too dumb, okay? That's why Clandis Owens can operate as, like, as a white supremacist, speaking on black issues from the white supremacist perspective. But because she's black, all the conservatives are like, what are you talking about? She's black. We're too stupid. The public is broadly too stupid to recognize that, like, of course Jewish people can be anti-Semitic. Look at Ben Shapiro. Look at half the Zionist Jews. Some of the most anti-Semitic motherfuckers you've ever encountered.